All right, so this is my last batch of array methods. We are dealing with methods that modify arrays, and this will be a bit of a change, but you got to remember what happens when we pass in arrays to a method, right? When we pass in an array over here, when we pass in 2020202 has adjacent match, we're not copying 202020 over, because that could actually be a huge array, right? That could be, a couple megabytes of numbers, right? That would be pretty massive. What happens in a method when we pass array into has adjacent match is that we don't copy the contents, we copy the memory location of that array, which is important. That means that it's the same array inside this method and inside this method, which means that any changes we make to the array will carry over. This is unlike passing, say, an integer, right? Because we're going to be copying that integer, or passing a string because you can't actually change a string. Instead, because we're copying this memory location over, this gives us the ability to modify the array, right? It's consistent. I know that sounds like it isn't, but it is consistent because it's passed by copy. We're copying the memory location of this array. So let's go ahead and see one that's pretty straightforward. Let's go ahead and do public static void, because we're not going to return anything when we modify an array. Swap ends. We maybe want to return an array if we're creating a new array and don't want to change the original one. But over here, since we're just going to be modifying array, we're going to do this. So this is a method that will just simply take the ends of an array and swap it. So if we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as my input, my output should be 5, 2, 3, 4, 1. Let's go ahead and do arrays.toString swap ends r. Actually, we don't need to do that because, again, that's not actually going to work because we're returning void, which means we're returning nothing. So all we have to do is actually return r. Not return r, but print out r over here. System.out.println r, and just do swap ends over here. We don't have to set an equal sign or anything. We don't have to do this. In fact, this won't work because, again, it's void. We're returning a void. So we're just simply performing this. So how do I do this? Well, to do any kind of swap, you always need a temporary variable. So swap temp is equal to. So what we're going to do is that we are going to, well, why do we need a temporary variable? Proof by counterexample. If I don't have one, let's go ahead and get the first item. And the last item in the array is going to be array.length -1. That is the last item in the array. Array.length -1. I know that looks a bit complicated, but remember, we can put any integer or any integer expression over here. This resolves into an integer expression, into a single integer. So, or rather evaluates to a single integer. So array.length -1 gives us a grand total of 4. 4 would be stored in array 0. So, or rather, whatever at index 4 would be stored in array 0. But now that would basically, after this line runs, if we're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this would give us 5, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now we have no way of getting the 1 back. So what we would do is that we'll create a temporary variable, which I'll simply call temp. We'll store the item from array 0 into there before we overwrite it. And then I'll take array.length -1, again, that's how you get the last number, is equal to array 0. Whoop, not array 0, but temp. 5, 2, 3, 4, 1. All right. Finally, one more one to deal with evens. Public static void. Actually, let's split it up. All mults to 0. So anything that's a or rather, let's go with all 5s to 0. So everything that's a multiple of 5 as opposed to an even number, we're going to reduce it to 0. So int r, straightforward, for int I is equal to array.length. If r sub I, if the number at I mod by 5 gives us a remainder of 0. So if the number divided by 5 gives us 0, then what we're going to do is we're going to set that item to 0. Okay, so let's do all 5s to 0. And now this will result in the first item being set to 0 because first we swapped all the n's, and then I said anything that's divisible by 5 should get set to 0. All right.